Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Cinematic Roundtable's weekly YouTube series in which we talk about our favorite thing in the world.
Pizza.
Movies. I'm Ryno.
And I'm Bobby.
And today, we're going to be discussing the behind-the-scenes turmoil that surrounds the Han Solo movie's development.
So news came out today via THR that there was a little more information to the firings of directors Phil Lord and Chirs Miller. So there definitely seems to be a decent amount of trouble surrounding the major tentpole film.
Yeah, so THR goes into detail on the specific day in which the duo was fired, stating that they were actually shooting the film that day, but they weren't doing so in the manner expected from Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm. The report states, matters had already reached a boiling point in mid-June when Phil Lord and Chirs Miller, co-directors of the still untitled Young Han Solo movie, were in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, but didn't start shooting until 1 p.m. Gosh.
That's a bomb-ass sentence. Mm-hmm. Like, we didn't start work till 1, we were hanging out in the Millennium Falcon
roll all night,
cockpit. Yeah.
Party every day in the cockpit.
Yeah.
That day, the two used only 3 different setups. That is, 3 variations on camera placement, as opposed to the 12 to 15 that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy had expected, according to sources with knowledge of the situation. Not only was the going slow, but the few angles that had been shot did not provide a wealth of options to use in editing the movie.
So it sounds like everything wasn't so perfect in a galaxy far, far away. Okay. That's what I'm rolling with. And apparently, Kathleen Kennedy went as far as to attempt to convince Lord and Miller to have Lawrence Kasdan collaborate with them to help them out in their directing duties. So this had worked previously with Gareth Edwards, but Lord and Miller, they weren't so accommodating.
The Saw movie. And it seems like Kathleen Kennedy wanted to hire directors that would put their own stamp on the Star Wars universe, but not so much that it didn't feel like core Star Wars, or what Lucasfilm viewed as inherently Star Wars.
Yeah, you can do what you want to do, but like, don't do what you want to do.
Yeah,
right. So
do what I want, or you don't get paid, and then you get fired.
But the news is not fully centered on Kennedy's response to the director's take. THR also reports, but the source close to Lord and Miller acknowledges that they have always worked in an improvisational style and not just to add comedic elements. They collaborate closely with their actors and give them creative freedom that, in their experience, brings out the actors' best performances. Lawrence Kasdan would not allow this and demanded that every line was said word for word. True old school guy. To appease him and the studio, Lord and Miller would do several takes exactly as written and then shoot additional takes.
They'd bring him an offering and sacrifice it at his altar.
And this seems to be an individual artist's chosen directing style, which is usually best up for the director, his or herself, or themselves, in the case of Lord and Miller.
Because there's a dose of them.
That'd be 2 for you English speakers.
See.
So it seems Lucasfilm wanted to make sure that the film came out as intended from the beginning of production, something Lord and Miller were fundamentally in disagreement with.
Yeah, and it seems that the entire production crew working with Lucasfilm seemed to agree with their bosses. Weird how that works.
Yeah.
People who sign their paychecks?
Yeah.
THR states, but Lord and Miller were not prepared to have Kasdan become a shadow director. With an impasse reached, Kennedy finally pulled the trigger. The next day, when the crew was told that Ron Howard would take over as director, sources say they broke into applause.
That hurts. That's a deep, deep cut.
As you're walking out the door.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby, I love. And it seems that Ron Howard has been quite the gentleman's director when it comes to this unfortunate situation, so he made sure to email the directing duo prior to accepting the position, making sure that they were okay with how things were shaking out.
I know things didn't work out between you two, but like, you mind if like that happened?
Yeah, it seemed like there was too many cooks in the kitchen, so what up? I'm a new chef.
Yeah.
A source close to THR states that the two were very supportive and very elegant.
That's a nice thing to say.
I want to be elegant.
And there seems to be a little bit more interesting information pouring in regarding some of the other aspects of this convoluted production. THR also reported that Lucasfilm had replaced editor Chris Dickens, who did Macbeth, in favor of the Oscar award-winning editor Pietro Scalia. I think that sounds
pretty
good. Who did long-time editing work for Ridley Scott on films like Gladiator, The Martian, Black Hawk Down, and most recently Alien Covenant. Once the footage was properly pieced together and Lucasfilm got a better look at the situation, they were dissatisfied with Alden Ehrenreich's performance as Solo, and like the rest of the internet, apparently, and they brought in an acting coach to help. It is worth noting that this situation isn't super rare in Hollywood when done early on in production, however, but to be needing this option this late in the game, yeah, it's a little troubling. So according to Star Wars news site, Star Wars News Net, the decision to start assembling footage came directly after Alden voiced concerns that the angle the directors were taking started to interfere with what he had believed was the best fit for Han Solo's representation. Everybody wants to direct, right? He felt that the tone and the character needed to fit more in line with the cantina scene from New Hope, makes sense, rather than a straight-up comedy. And
Han Solo is known for his slapstick.
And recent news broke that source reported that Ehrenreich's performance was oddly comparable to Jim Carrey's performance as Ace Ventura at times. That's what you want to see.
So at times, he was great.
Yeah. And this silly tonality was exactly what got Lucasfilm in trouble with the prequel films.
Ooh.
I think there's a lot of things that got him in trouble, but that's, definitely...
It's like pouring alcohol on a wound that had previously
Yeah.
had gasoline poured
the Jar
on
Jar
it.
effect. The last person Han Solo should be compared to at the end of the day is Ace Ventura. It is worth noting that Star Wars News Net also reports that problems did not exist between Ehrenreich and Lucasfilm, as they state. Lucasfilm likes the cast they've assembled and think positively of what they've done, especially with Ehrenreich. So it is possible this Ace Ventura news is just a bit of hearsay, or maybe they don't want to talk bad about their lead this far into production.
Also possible.
Who knows?
And THR also reports that professionals in the industry are beginning to question the tactics of Kennedy and Lucasfilm, stating that her need for licensure control may lead to further problems down the road and stunt artistic expression that leads directors to these projects in the first place. After all, George Lucas wasn't answering to an entire controlling committee when developing his original space epic. But for now, all we can do is speculate on a couple of key decisions that will come to light soon. Will the film be delayed, giving Howard time to assemble a great cut? Will directors steer clear of any future Star Wars involvement? And what will Lord and Miller do next? So as far as the film getting pushed back, Star Wars News Net also said that it was an entirely possible scenario, saying that one of their sources brought up this possibility. It seems like it will come down to the discretion of both Lucasfilm and Ron Howard, as news is saying there's still a lot of usable footage from Lord and Miller. I couldn't possibly imagine jumping into a production this late in the game, especially a Star Wars film, and completing somebody else's work, but Howard is definitely the smart and the safe choice to get this done. As far as directors avoiding Lucasfilm's involvement, I don't think we're likely to see another scenario like this again. At this point, it seems like Lucasfilm will have to vet their directors properly and make sure that the plans for the films are sculpted in marble in the Lucasfilm lobby before proceeding any further. Regarding Lord and Miller's futures, THR also reports that there is still a void that needs to be filled over at DC and Warner Brothers for their Flash film, which the duo did co-write.
Heyo.
We can only hope that they won't rush in too fast without getting confirmation of their own creative control. At the end of the day, it's sad that we won't get to see Lord and Miller's vision for this universe. Ah, man, Ace Ventura in space. But
now
it
Ace
sounds...
Ventura running really fast instead. So
Okay. I'm into that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there was some serious quality control that needed to take place over at Lucasfilm. Like there was some serious quality control that needed to happen, and with this kind of money and property at risk, a dud just is not a possibility. Hopefully Lucasfilm will hire Ron Howard, who recently released his Beatles documentary 8 Days a Week, to direct the documentary about this entire jumbled production process.
Got him. So, gotta drop the mic.
Yep.
Walk away. So with a project like the Han Solo anthology film and all the controversy that is surrounding the picture, it is hard to truly decipher what is happening on either side. Both the director and the studio heads, they all have their own versions of the story, and we may never really know the true details of what actually took place on set. Now, the firing of the director this far into the filming process isn't unprecedented, but it's also not commonplace either. It's worked out for a few historic films, such as The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, Superman 2, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and so on. You might note that a lot of these movies are really old. But it is not a practice that generally bodes well for a film project. More often than not, notable behind-the-scenes drama leads to this extent can lead to a really poor movie. However, Rogue One, as we said before, had its share of issues on set and still managed to be a success, both commercially as well as critically.
Good Han Solo movie.
It's all we want.
It doesn't feel that hard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that the hardest part is on Ehrenreich to kind of get the character right.
Yeah.
And everything else.
And Donald Glover to be super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Because guy's been cool, but nobody's been that cool.
It's tough.
But yeah, so that just about does it. But we want to hear from you, as always. What are your thoughts on this scenario?
Is this going to be any good? Or is this bound for disaster?
Yeah, will it be poop? Let us know in the comments below, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and visit us at our website, cinematicroundtable.com.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Have a good week, you crazies.